Well, better late than never. JB, we do apologize to folks on not starting this show or getting it out, let's say earlier in the week, but I do have an excuse.
You were busy.
I was a little busy. I got the doctor's excuse here to give it to the principal, and he said it's okay. And so we're actually layering an interview with a great coach later in the show. More on that in a minute. But yep, exactly. Oh, wow. Is that the international signal for layering?
Layering, level up. I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
But I was one of the organizers of local organizers. There's a national structure and local structures. We're on the local level. In New York, hosted Gay Bowl 19, 64 teams, including 16 women's teams, 4 divisions total, and always a good time. We did it in Randall's Island, which is basically between, or let's say it's under the Tri-Borough Bridge. So those 3 boroughs, it's literally underneath the bridge that leads to them. And over 1,100 athletes showed up for this one. Obviously, several teams from New York. 8 teams from New York, so 1/8 of the players, give or take, were New Yorkers. But then the rest, wild cards across the country, all the way from Hawaii to Toronto to Boston. And I know Toronto's not in this country, but we kind of just, because they're only international team, we lump them in anyway in that term. But one person, people wonder why we do this, or me and the rest of the referees that do this, or 55 referees alone in this game, or in the weekend. But there was a story that I didn't know until Monday, and I know the person involved in it. His name's Don Vance Green. We call him Vance. He's the quarterback for the Utah team. And Utah finished second in the C division, which was a very competitive division this year. And he found out that his mom, who had been battling cancer, lost her fight on Thursday night. And Friday morning, he posted about it on Facebook, but then not many people saw it, obviously, because I'm, me, I would be one of the first people to know because I'm a stalker, busybody like that on Facebook, apparently. But he played, dedicated the tournament to her, despite the loss on Thursday night. They came in second. He's a straight ally also. It's not like, the whole sexuality thing is for him a personal thing. He's an ally and one of the leaders for that team. And, a tribute to him for doing what he did. Prayers for his family and his mom who passed. And again, cancer just sucks. It really does. But that's just one of the many stories, and NFL Network actually was shooting out there, and it's going to have a documentary about our little group, the NGFFL and Gay Bowl 19, coming out soon on the NFL Network. So there's that. So we always start with big jokes in the open here. We get a little informative. While I did that, I missed a lot of stuff, obviously, in Division III world. You gave me some good cliff notes. We caught up in the meantime, and we've got enough right now to go and do week 6 of In the Huddle. Okay, so we got a roll here. We got a nice, it's longish, but I think it's a great interview with one of our favorite coaches out there who got his first win. Let's go! I mean,
yes,
Dan Mulrooney from Anna Maria will be joining us later on in the show, and it's real. That energy he exudes is real, because during the interview you could feel he wanted to just like jump up and start doing, some training sessions and stuff like that with you and me, I think, in that interview. And we get a couple of ring the bells and let's goes in that thing. So stay tuned for that later on in the show. We've got Crunchtime. What was it, like 31 games, give or take, this week?
Yeah, 31. So a little bit less than usual. And there are a couple of conferences that only had like 1 to 2 to 3 games. But There were some crazy finishes this weekend. Over a third of them came down to either an overtime game, a last-minute touchdown, or some kind of 6-point, final wrap-up. So it's going to be pretty exciting to recap all the action from Week 6.
I think you just gave your 30,000-foot view of the week, so I'm not going to ask you to do it again. I think we should just roll. And go ahead. I'll let you do the honors.
Yeah, for the games that we're ending on October 12th, Week 6, this is Crunchtime.
Let's start in a place we don't often start in because they don't have a lot of games to post sometimes. But now that we're in conference play for them, we do have some and some highlights to go with it. We just talked about Anna Maria against Alfred State, and it looked like Alfred State was going to win this game, but Anna Maria with 16 seconds left. It was Hayden Braga from Tanner Kingsley, and they trailed by 14 points in the fourth quarter, but end up winning 21-20. Tyshawn Anderson with 24 tackles. My goodness, Anna Maria had a defensive and an offensive effort in that game for the win. And so for a team that has not won, they're 0-5 before that game. They're now 1-5 and lead, basically tied with one other team because remember, Dean isn't eligible. They are basically sitting atop the ECFC, giving St. Lawrence 2010 some company possibly eventually. We'll see. We'll talk about that later on.
Yeah.
Gallaudet. Yeah, absolutely. Gallaudet in overtime beats Castleton 28-27. The Bison trailed by 14 in the third quarter, and they took a missed PAT by the Spartans in overtime for the win for Gallaudet, who had to overcome 3 interceptions in the game. And Dean 28, SUNY Maritime 10. Again, you wonder here, SUNY Maritime was really a hands-on pick for a lot of people to win the ECFC going in, but now they're 0-1. And it's going to be interesting to see what the win-loss record is of the ultimate winner of the ECFC, because by that happening, we're almost guaranteed a 4-loss team now to win the ECFC. That's just, for all the insults out there about it, it's just reality, folks. Deal with it at this point.
Yep.
Let's go to the CCC. Husson 42, Curry 40. One of the big plays in this game was an 81-yard kickoff return. Curry trailed by 17 in the third quarter, tried to put the comeback together, but could not do it as the defense of Husson stopped a 2-point conversion. That was an attempted tie with 1:57 left. I know you were paying attention to this game, and Husson, we've been saying it, don't take your eyes off them.
Yeah, the Eagles seem to have figured out how to get their new offense up and running, and it's been scoring them a lot of points these last couple of weeks, and it's given them a perfect start in CCC play. We weren't so sure about them early on because of their struggles out of the gate, but now they seem like a pretty solid contender, and they'll definitely be in the mix for these last 4 weeks of the season.
In the new MAC, Springfield continues to scrape together wins, and this is really, I think, going to make the the new MAC. We were in the CCC a minute ago, Frank. The new MAC, a very competitive.
That's right. I just said there were 4 weeks left. There's 5.
It's okay. Numbers, conferences, it doesn't matter. Or at least as it should. Springfield 20 to Coast Guard's 14. Chad Shade with 171 total yards after that great interview from last week. We must have inspired him on the field, passing and rushing TD. But that Springfield defense really stepping up again. 2 interceptions and held Coast Guard to 52 rushing yards. Then we have Merchant Marine 30, Norwich 20. Merchant Marine remains undefeated, as does WPI in the new MAC. And keep your eye on that game, circle it and, highlight it and boldface it and everything else, because it looks like a huge game coming up. And remember that Merchant Marine had to rally from 14-0 down in the game. And defense again, Merchant Marine since that FDU Florham game, stepping up as they held Norwich to -11 rushing yards in that game. And MIT, they're still sticking around there at 2-1 in the conference. 30, Maine Maritime 12. And so there's that conference. In the MASCAC, WestCon 5-0. I mean, we didn't know if they'd be the same team necessarily coming in, but they are right now. It seems like a 38-21. The brunt of their season's still to come. We know that in the conference. But, you know, I believe we have a clip here of a 30-yard pass from David James to Will Daniels that helps them pull away in this game.
10. James is throwing, and he's going to have himself a touchdown toss. Hello, end zone. Touchdown, Colonials. Will Daniels.
And they rallied. They had to withstand a rally from Mass Maritime, 21-7. Made it 24-21 late in the third quarter. So they really did need to pull away again in that game. And then we have Framingham State 56, Fitchburg State 7. And, you know, you have Framingham State at 3-0. Just sticking around there at 3-2, 3-0. As they outgained Fitchburg State 548-148. Just dominated that game. Bridgewater State 21, Worcester State 9. Bridgewater State at 3-1 in the conference. Worcester State had a 7-6 lead at the half, but lucky 46. Why don't you explain that one to folks?
Yeah, there was basically a couple of 46-yard touchdowns. I guess the final being a 46-yard pick six to put this one away. But it was one of those situations where it looked like the Lancers might have the upper hand on the Bears, but then they were able to turn things around, and part of it was that 46-yard pick six.
Plymouth State's still hanging around 38-13 over Westfield State. David Hamilton and Nick Lancia combined for 232 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 44-minute time possession for Plymouth State. If you hold on to the ball for that long, you should win the game, let's face it. Let's go unusually to the Mid-Atlantic here as the NJAC's up next. Salisbury, number 14 team in the country, beats the number 12 team in the country, Wesley, 45-38 in a shootout. We will have a guest from Salisbury on later in the week, probably Thursday, we'll release our player interviews. And we have basically a Wesley touchdown, Hess with a 79-yard touchdown catch. But that was eventually answered. And this is really what, for me, was the final blow for Wesley when Shamar Gray had a 13-yard touchdown run. He gave a 2-touchdown lead to Salisbury. Wesley tried to come back, but was unable to. 45-38. Is Salisbury for real after you watch some of this game?
Yeah, I think so. And even though the defense gave up like 3 pretty long touchdown plays in the game, they came up with stops when they needed them, and they held Wesley to a couple of field goals in the second half. And that's kind of what they've been doing this whole season. They don't put up gaudy numbers. You don't see a lot of shutouts. They're giving up over 20-something points a game. But quietly, the Salisbury defense has been helping. Their offense is going to put up points. Langham and company, that option spread that they run is definitely hard to stop. But the defense is kind of quietly in the background, helping them now take control of the NJAC race, and potentially, there are not a lot of teams in the mix, Frank, that could be possible number 1 seed out of the East, it seems, but at least at number 2 could come from an NJAC champion type of situation. But Salisbury still has a couple of big games left to go, but this certainly puts them at the top of the heap.
Montclair 10, TCNJ 7, as Montclair tries to stick around here, even at a 2-4 record overall. Shaquille Birch had the game-winning touchdown pass to Kason Campbell with 3:03 left in the game. Also, Christopher Newport 34, William Patterson 10. William Patterson can't get that league win. That conference win would be the first one in a while for them if they were able to, but not having much success as Christopher Newport moves to 1-1 in the conference. Rowan 52, Kane 7, 432-188 in yardage in favor of Rowan with 8 different rushers, 41 carries, 217 yards, 4 touchdowns, and as always, a partridge and a pear tree. We'll go to the MAC next.
Owls.
Yeah, and Wilkes remains undefeated. This is a story developing here, and a big game coming up against Del Val very, very soon. Tell you more about that in a little bit. But Jose Tabora, the game-winning touchdown run with 5:55 remaining, That's what you're seeing. And remember that the Wilkes defense, despite giving up 40, needs to show up at times, and they did with the interception in the final Albright drive. Crazy end of the first half in this game. I think 3 different touchdowns within the last 2 minutes. Bang, 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 and including a kickoff return. So a crazy game, but Wilkes remains undefeated, importantly so. Let's look at Alvernia getting their first ever conference win over Lycoming. 29-24. Darius Sample with the 15-yard run with 1:03 remaining. Also threw for a touchdown in the game. And congratulations, Alvernia. Look, you may be 1-3 in the conference, but at the same time, you got to start somewhere. As teams like Kings and Wilkes, this is a wide-open conference, so if you can start building yourself up, you might be able to do something within the next couple seasons. FDU Florham had a big comeback effort in the game against Lebanon Valley, but Lebanon Valley able to score and then hold off FDU Florham one final time with a 2-point conversion that failed with 2:04 remaining, 31-30 in favor of Lebanon Valley. The defense had 3 sacks for Lev Val and 9 tackles for loss. That's huge, with 1 interception. Misericordia, hey, nothing unusual. They just won again, from a come-from-behind win. I may be going to FDU Florham versus Misericordia this coming week. To me, you know what? For all the crap I've talked about Misericordia on this show, I got to go put my face out there because Lord knows I'm a glutton for punishment. Yeah. But you know what? They're earning it. They just keep earning it. Their yardage numbers don't look gaudy, as you said. It's incredible what they're able to do week to week. Widener looked like they were going to be okay in this game early on, but they didn't put enough separation between them and Widener, and Misericordia. Misericordia comes out and wins 40-35, 931 yards of total offense, and Brady Williams with almost 3 passing yards, which is a pretty good day for him compared to other weeks. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Give credit to Sean McGahee, who also had about 300 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions, possibly a difference maker in that game. And Kings falls to number 13 Del Val, 28-13. Anthony Fontana, we keep talking about him. His efficiency as a quarterback getting better now, and people should be aware of this fact now. 21 for 27, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. Del Val defense also showing up with 2 interceptions and held off Kings with only 6 rushing yards allowed in that game. To New York we go in the Empire 8. Let's talk about Brockport. They ain't going away. They have 13 scoreless quarters in a row right now. That's 3 shutouts plus 1 quarter. And that's a 38-0 win. 5 touchdowns on the ground. And who was the quarterback in this game? You wrote this down. I had to go back and check, but who's back?
Jason Helwig is back. I guess his bad shoulder that he got banged up in week 1 in the Hobart game looks like he's back on track. Although supposedly Freddie June, the fantastic freshman, was fighting an illness, and maybe we have a quarterback controversy starting there. They're on the bye this weekend. We will see in a couple weeks, but great game by Jason, who we had on our preseason show. It's good to see that he's out there healthy and playing well.
Steve Potter on the phone for you about this quarterback controversy that you're starting. And we'll just go back to the game, though. We'll go back to the games. Utica has to hold off St. John Fisher 34-28. Congratulations to Elijah Bell, 49-yard pick 6. That makes 3 for his career, 2 for the season, and an all-time record for season and career, I believe.
There's a free rusher, and that's John Nish. Not enough to take him down. And that's going to be picked up by Eli Bell to the 40, 35, and no one's going to catch him. Eli Bell with the pick 6, touchdown Pioneers.
Obviously a somewhat younger program at Utica, but the fact is that he has that record now, and he's been playing lights out. We had talked to him earlier in the season when I was there for the St. Lawrence game. 34-28 Utica. And Cortland State 42, Morrisville State 28. Very quietly, Cortland State has remained undefeated, 5-0. It's tough to believe that a Cortland team can be a quiet 5-0, but that's really happened this season. Brett Segala and company continue to just rack up the wins with 232 passing yards and a touchdown in that game. And let's go to the Liberty League next. Hobart 41, RPI 27. Let's go. Give me some game flow on this for about 20-30 seconds here. You watch this game closely. Was RPI ever really in this game?
Not really. No, I mean Hobart came out. They were a totally different team than the one that you saw at Union a couple weeks ago. I mean, there were the teams did sort of trade some back and forth possessions, but the Hobart offense really just started to click, and the defense just really was blitzing off the corners and really got to George Marinopoulos, caused a fumble on a key play, which then Hobart cashed in for a touchdown a few plays later. It was 38-7 to start the fourth quarter. Never was really in doubt, and so it's kind of like, oh wow. So this Hobart team that I was certainly a little bit down on now seems to have some new life. They go into a huge game against Ithaca down in Butterfield Stadium this weekend. Hobart's never won there. They've kind of gone about 500 with Ithaca since the year 2000, but shaping up to be a potential championship caliber game. Ithaca's got a couple coming up because they still have to play Union, who's undefeated also. But this is going to be another big weekend for the Liberty League.
Also, RPI coming up as well. Just because of the loss doesn't mean that RPI is any less of a team at the end of the day. For Ithaca, who won 48-14, number 10 team in the country, had Joe Germanario with 325 passing yards. Will Gladney and Andrew Vito had 20 combined catches for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. And obviously the defense showing up again, holding Buffalo State to 70 rushing yards. And Union beating up on Rochester 47-19. They moved to 5-0. So you've got 2 5-0 teams in the Liberty League and a 5-1 team in Hobart. Pool C may really fall to the Liberty League if things don't start eating each other up, teams don't start eating each other up, and Hobart has as much chance as anyone to help that fact. Ultimately, we'll see what happens. What are you going to say?
Quick question for you, Frank, since I know you know this stuff better than I do. I did get asked by a fan, what is the tiebreaker scenario? Let's say if Union, Ithaca, and Hobart all finished the season 9-1. Now, what I recall is initially it's the head-to-head matchup, but since you have Team A, B, and C, and so on and so forth, the next level down has to do with how many wins over programs over 500. Is that right?
500 or over, yes. So basically, if you have quality wins, you look better in that assessment. Ultimately, we'll look more at that a little bit later when we're looking at standings. That might help us get there. But obviously, Union will be behind the 8 ball like that because they don't have many results against teams at 500 or over. Finally, NESCAC, before we forget here, Wesleyan had to come back in the night game against Tufts. 20-13, though, they remain undefeated at 5-0. It took a touchdown with 6 seconds left. Is that what I'm reading here? A 29-yard touchdown pass?
It looks like I had an extra 0. Yes,
okay.
But there was only... Yeah, it'll edit it. 6 seconds left. One of his 130 receiving yards. Great game by wide receiver Matt Simcoe to bail out the Cardinals, who are one of 2 undefeated teams. Speaking of undefeated teams in the NESCAC, Middlebury dodged some bullets and got lucky with some missed kicks from the Mules to hang on in their game.
It's kind of ironic if you think about the Mule having some bad kicks. But 27-26, Middlebury does win against Colby and had a rally from 13-0 down in the first half to win the game. Amherst, though, trying to keep pace at 4-1, 36-14. 3 turnovers forced by the defense of Amherst helps win that game. Trinity beats up on Bates 51-0. Outgained them 416-105. And Williams keeping pace at 4-1. Against Hamilton, they beat them 35-10. Bobby M with 271, 5 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception. You knew that was coming. And that is crunch time for week 6. So, JB, instead of doing your normal stat chat at this point, stat chat, we'll call it JB's stat chat from now on.
Sounds good.
Yeah, see that? We're going to have a mid-year report card, and let's look at some of the things. As always, I'll read one off.
By saying that these stats are based through week 5. So, 10 games of the season. Most of these players have played either 4 or 5 games. They definitely, some of this stuff did change a little bit through week 6. But for the most part, just kind of like week 5 seemed like a good cutoff to me. So if you want to ping me at D3FB Huddle on Twitter and said, hey, no, you're wrong about this, that's fair. But through 5 weeks, this is kind of what I was seeing. And we'll do a year-end report card down the road. But so there's a lot of teams listed at the top where I think they're still meeting expectations, like Western New England, who's still undefeated in D3. Don't forget that. Endicott, Framingham, Wesley, Middlebury, and so on. But there are a number of teams where my preseason predictions were whiffs. Montclair State starting to turn.
Good and bad, I should interrupt and say, in terms of teams that outperformed what you thought or underperformed what you thought. So when you see a Salisbury in this list, that you didn't see them coming is basically what it means.
Well, I didn't see them as a undefeated team at this stretch in the road. I think I predicted that they would be like a second or third place team in the NJAC, and second place still could possibly happen. But with the win with Wesley, they're in the driver's seat. So they're actually, yes, they are overperforming based on what I thought, given what they had lost to graduation. And same thing with Wesleyan. Didn't see them being 5-0 at this point in the season. They had graduated a number of key talent, especially their quarterback from last season. Union, same thing. I thought they might be a third, fourth place team in the Liberty League. Now they might be the potential champions. So there's a lot of teams on this list. WestCon also, Merchant Marine. I mean, every year I fall for Toop's thing about how, like, oh, man, we're really, it's going to be tough season. Toop, really? Come on, man. I mean, look at these guys. They're undefeated in the new MAC. They're going to, they had the one hiccup in week 1, but they're doing great. Overall, I think they're, the players who stood out to me, Michael Nobile for defense. I did double check this one, Frank. He is still first in the nation as far as tackles for loss for Del Val. Awesome defensive player, only a sophomore, having a great season for the Aggies, and that'll be something we'll talk a little more about with the Wilkes game coming up. Griffin from Alfred, as of week 5, was the second in the nation. He's still in the top 10 as far as rushing yards goes, which is pretty impressive. This guy, he's a senior, but he was basically a backup to Naz Smith the last couple seasons, really, shining so far for the Saxons, who are still in the Empire 8 hunt. And then Stephen Gaychuk, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago, at the time, at end of week 3, was third in the nation. The crazy thing, Frank, is actually end of week 3, they were all top 5 passing yards quarterbacks in the nation, all East Region guys. Peters from UNE, McGahee from Widener, Gaychuk from Mass Dartmouth, Dunn from Norwich, and Groshot from St. Lawrence. Pretty awesome to see. I guess we like to air it out here in the East.
Yeah, you would think the Jackson Erdmans of the world would be on top of that list, but not this year yet, at least. He's getting there, from what I understand. And when we recompute this list at some point, I'm sure you'll see him at some high level. But for now, you're right, absolutely. JB, before we jump into our standings and schedule review that we do every week, I think we're going to start with the ECFC anyway. Let's talk about Anna Maria again. And this kind of surprise situation where they are the best looking 1-5 team in the country because they are atop their conference at 1-5 with Gallaudet. Dean, again, is not going to be able to qualify for the Pool A bid. So if they won the conference, the second place team would get it at that point. So Anna Maria will face Dean this coming weekend. We'll talk more about that in this interview and later on as well. But Dan Mulrooney, ring the bell, ring the bell, ring the bell. Let's talk to him here. Well, it's time to talk to Coach Mulrooney. Now, Coach, ring the bell. You rang the bell. I mean, finally rang the bell this season, making JB and I look decent now because we've been saying this bell is going to be ringing all season long. How does it feel to get that win against Alfred State?
Yeah, it felt really good. I feel like we were stuck at a stop sign for a long time, and it felt good for the red light to turn green. And I appreciate your guys' support for being bullish about us the first during preseason and hopping on hype train. But yeah, our team deserves it. we're a good group of kids. I'm really proud of the team and the coaches and really the young men in our program for stepping up to the plate and put us in a decent position for the second half of the season.
So, Coach, tell us a little bit about the roller coaster ride there at the very end, because you kind of had it looked like you made a little bit of a quarterback change because Leak had some success for you in the first half, but it was Kingsley who threw the game-winning touchdown down the stretch. So, just kind of walk us through that roller coaster ride of you guys go down the field in 75 yards to get within 6 points. The defensive stand, you did a great job managing your timeouts. And then there was the fumble that I think Antoine Inch, or what, I should get that right. He was the EFC Tyshawn Anderson, the player, defensive player of the week with 24 tackles. How do I mess that name up? But kind of walk us through the roller coaster ride of what that was like at the end of the game.
Yeah, that was one of the wildest games I've been in as a coach or as a player. I haven't been in too many games where it was 20-6 with a minute and 25 left in the game. The game was electric near the end. Our kids stuck with it. We scored with, Tanner Kingsley is a transfer from Central Connecticut State. He was out the first couple weeks with injury and some things going on. We got him back in the second half of this game. He really stepped up to the plate, and he threw a great ball the last 2 drives. So we're real proud of his level of mentorship and experience that he can bring to the table for our football team. Tyshawn Anderson had one of the best games I've ever seen, as a defensive coordinator or as defensive coach. I mean, he came up really big for us late in the stretch. We got an onside kick, and they called an illegal touching. With about a minute 13 left, we burned both timeouts, and on third down, he forced a fumble and recovered it to help us get that final drive. So, and Tanner threw a great ball at the end of the game, and both converted the third downs. It was just an awesome game. Our kids deserved it. They've been dealing with a lot of adversity through the first 5 weeks and trying to find their identity. And Alfred State's a good football team. They're going to beat some teams in our league, and that was a big win for our program.
So, Coach, did people, when you went to take the job at Emory, call you crazy or question the move? Because in the first 6 seasons, the team won 6 games, and that was, I think, you came in around the 8th season there, give or take, and it didn't get any better for a little bit for your time, obviously. But what really motivated you besides wanting to be a head coach? Why Anna Maria? I mean, with a football program with not really much history, or any history it had wasn't very positive at the time. Why did you want this gig, as they call it?
That's a good question. I guess if it's not hard, it's not fun, right? And I think that's part of the equation. I knew what I was walking into. I knew if there was someone with enough energy and passion to turn something around that's never been anything, I'd be the right man for the job. I knew it was a local school that hadn't had much success. The most exciting part to me was, what better job can you take? I mean, a team that's never had success. I mean, there's no ceiling there. I mean, I think if you win 3 games, you're the best coach ever, right? So I'm going for that this year. But, ultimately, I mean, there's never been a successful year. So if you're able to do something special at a place that's never been special, you could really light some it could really be a career jolt for you. I get the adage of, it could be, don't just take a head coaching job to take it. It could be your last, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe in that. I really don't. I think it's all about the young men in your program. And the reason your coach isn't to win or lose games, at least that's not my reason, is to really change these kids' lives for the positive. And that's really what we're doing here every day. I mean, there's a lot of miracle work done here that goes unnoticed. And I know you only notice it when we win or lose football games, but that's not the real reason you do something. You do it for more than just that.
Well, let me follow up if I can. The administration, the athletic director, and above him even, to the president of the school, is there some sort of expectation on you that you're going to get to the second and third and fourth wins at a certain point? Or do they give you the support that you need ultimately to do it? Take us kind of behind the maturation of what was a young program that's maturing at this point, and what you feel like they're looking to you for at this point in time, most of all, from what they've told you.
Yeah, this place is amazing. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in what's going on. our president is elite in terms of understanding that this place wants to be a great football program. Everyone wants to win. Everyone's supportive. Like, you win the other day, and, everyone, it's almost like poor me for a long time. But, I think adversity has brought us to this point. Our administration, our new AD, our old AD, I mean, everyone that's associated with our program is all about football, athletics, and really building this program into what I think it can be. And that's a powerhouse in New England. I really do. I believe it. It's going to take time. It's, time and patience is something I'm not good at. I don't think any coach is good at. But it's going to take some time. When you walked in a program here with really not in the right space here with 8 to 10 players on it 2 years ago, you kind of dig it out of a grave. And I think we've done that. We'll see. I mean, the rest of the season here, we're in position now to play a meaningful football game in Paxton. I mean, let's go. I mean, that's exciting. That's exciting.
There it is. Let's go. Let's go.
I had to give you one, Frank. I had to give you one. But no, I'm excited. A meaningful football game in Paxton in October. I mean, we haven't had that in a long time.
Yeah. You've got your homecoming weekend coming up. You've got Dean College, who's also 1-0 in the conference, just like you guys. You played them real tough in the last game of the season last year. 5-point game, I think it was, 6-point game, something like that. A lot of close games, and so this is definitely one. I mean, hey, someone's got to go to the playoffs from the ECFC. Why not Anna Maria?
I literally I sent an email to our team. I usually do that every night. I send an email to our team, motivating our guys for the next day. Literally, the title was "Why Not Us?" And I think that we put ourselves in position. We won a really close football game. We sneaked out of Alfred just by a hair there, and that was important. I mean, it kept our miracle alive here. I think it'd be a great story. I think for people who work hard and do things the right way, and I'm a firm believer in good things happen to good people who work hard. And we're excited to be in position to have some meaningful games and to go out there and try to do something special. I think it'd be a great story. I think our players deserve it. And we'll see what happens.
You realize, and I know JB knows this, it's been since year 2010 since a 5-5 team reached the playoffs, and that was St. Lawrence in the Liberty League back in 2010. You would have to go 5-5 possibly, or even 4-6 might be able to do it based on what the conditions right now are in the ECFC. You would qualify for the playoffs. This is uncharted territory. You've been talking about it because you are 1-0, and there is a team that seems beatable right now, although they've been all over the map in the Dean Bulldogs, who are technically not eligible to take the AQ this year. But you got to beat them either way here. How do you beat this team? They seem to give up a lot of points, but score a lot of points. This could be a shootout. But if you get players with 24 tackles, again, maybe not. How do you game plan for this game?
Yeah, I think with our league, I think it's such a competitive game no matter whoever you face. And the games are going to be wild. I think you saw this first weekend. It was like, 28-27 overtime, Castleton or Gaudet over Castleton. I think you saw our game 1 point. Dean Maritime was 10-7 at halftime. Every week's going to be wild. There's not there's not a hustling anymore. There's not one of those teams in the conference that's just, the far away leader. I think it's going to be a fun stretch. I think every week is attention to detail. It's coaching your butt off. It's getting ready to go. They have good players. We have good players. It's just a matchup thing. I think every week it's all a matchup thing in terms of that. I don't think, I know 4-6, 5-5. Other conferences look at it that have 7-3 teams and 5-5 teams. Listen, we can only control what we can control, and that's the schedule we have. As much as or bad as our conference is, or what other people want to say. Listen, we're excited to be in the conference because this is what the only thing. This is the cards we're dealt, and we'll make the most of it.
Yeah, you guys are certainly succeeding in some respects because not every New England football school is still around anymore, and so it's one of those things where it looks when we spoke in the preseason. I mean, you guys are putting out a lot of stuff in social media. You've got guys with the championship belt. You've got the all sorts of different uniform combinations. I mean, it does seem like you get the I guess today's market, for lack of a better term, and you're putting stuff out there. And like you said, it's going to take some time, but it feels like, there's something building there, and it's been fun to see it finally pay off with the win last Saturday.
No, yeah, I appreciate it, James, a lot. I mean, I have a big appetite for marketing and recruiting, and I think that's the fastest way to turn around a program is get really good players that are compelled and are passionate about football. I don't know a lot of things, but what I do know is I read a couple books on great coaches, and to be great forever, you need to find people who love the game and have them around. I think when you open up the hood of the car, when you win or lose, it's usually the people who have the most compelled people under the hood that are going to win those games. And you got to find people who love the game and can't really live without it. And I think that's the thing we try to preach here. We have passion, fun families slapped all across the walls. And, we try to do things a little differently here with a little more energy, enthusiasm than some other programs. But at the end of the day, football is football, and we want to attract the best, young men to come and compete. We have a really quality experience here. We really care as coaches, and I think I show the passion and the enthusiasm every day, and I think it feeds off to the players.
Yeah.
So you came from WPI. Our good friend C-Rob is a fan of the show, and we want to sort of hear your thoughts and any stories you may have on C-Rob. I have a feeling there's some good stories in the war chest on this one when you were defensive coordinator back in the day. So feel free to give us your thoughts on C-Rob and tell us the best C-Rob story that you can. Remember, it is a family show.
First of all, Coach Rob is my biggest mentor. He's one of my best friends. We text almost every day. He was the first one to text me, go get it this week. You got it. Me and Jake are going to be watching his young son there, who's actually a football player too and an athlete, baseball player. It's a big shout out to you. But Coach Rob's stories, we had a great time there at WPI together. The two worst days of our lives, we talk about it all the time, was when we had to face each other the last 2 years, and he kicked my butt for 2 years straight, and those are the two worst days. But I think it could be a funny deal if somehow, I don't know if NewMac plays the ECFC, but I think they're going to go 10-0 in the NewMac here and have a really special season for him. And I'm just really excited for the program he's built and how I helped him build that class of the seniors and things like that too. I know I had a big hand in that recruiting class, and I'm really proud of those kids. Watching them in the last year, I know Sean McAllen, some of those guys that I recruited, are doing so great. I'm really proud of those kids to give Coach Rob a great season. And I don't know if we'll see each other in year 3, but that'd be pretty cool. 2 teams in Worcester facing each other in the playoffs if we somehow have a special year.
Well, Jim Catanzaro has a good sense of humor, the chair of the NCAA committee, and I'm sure he will help lead that discussion to maybe, just maybe, make that happen if it were to happen. First things first, maybe. You got Dean. JB, anything left on your end?
No, I know that.
Yeah. No, well, I just wanted to give, Coach, some kudos because, I think a big reason for, WPI's success this year is the top, team in New England right now. Like you said, that senior class, those 35 guys, a lot of which you recruited and brought in, and that defensive scheme that you got, set up there is really, it's taken C-Rob some time, but it's starting to pay off too. So obviously you have it, you're a young guy. I don't even think about how much younger you are than me. But you have a track record already, and it's why, places like the AFCA have, recognized you as being one of the top coaches under 35. I don't even think you're even 30 yet. So, geez, we're a bunch of old men over here, Frank and I, but it's been fun to watch, what the progress and hey, big game this weekend. Like you said, it's October football. It's going to be homecoming. It's going to be an exciting environment for you guys up there in Paxton.
Yeah, like I said, I appreciate you guys. You guys do a great job too. And, I think, the sky's the limit for Anna Maria football. The sky's the limit for myself. The sky's the limit for our players. Listen, we have a lot of fun here. And I think that's the best part. It's better than being a plumber, like Bill Belichick always says, right? It's something that, we love to do. And, I think it's great. Coaching young men is the best thing you could do in life. And it's definitely my passion. It's something I want to do forever. Whatever happens this year, we're going to do it with a lot of enthusiasm, and we're going to have fun doing it, and I know that.
Coach, if you beat Dean, I will come up for the SUNY Maritime game. I'm going to tell you that flat out right now. And that means I'm going to throw
Let's
a
go.
set of.
That's exciting.
There it
Give
is.
me another let's go.
Let's go. Come on, guys. Let's go. Ring the bell.
I'll tell you
JB.
what.
Ding, ding.
I'm excited.
Yeah, well, let's see what happens here. Dean is no pushover of a team in the ECFC.
No, they're a good team. Really.
No, you just don't know which one you're going to get every week. I think that's the problem for Dean. They're just inconsistent. But, I felt bad that one day we were talking about it on the show not that long ago when there's student broadcasters were sort of dissing their own team, and that's not cool. We don't agree with that type of thing. But it happens. But hopefully they've gotten better about that, and word reached, hopefully. But that team last year was doing things which nobody really expected. And now consistency issue is probably hitting them, and injuries happen and everything else. So don't take them lightly because Dean is probably looking to come out strong.
Oh no, they're one of the most talented teams, top to bottom in our league, and Coach Tyrell does a great job of, number one, recruiting, number two, coaching his guys. He's been coaching for a long time. He has great scheme. He has great players. He has great coaches, and it's a major challenge for us. I mean, every game's a major challenge. I mean, we snuck out of Dodge last week against a team that I believe is a good team, and I think will shock a lot of people. They beat a Rochester team in the Liberty League, did some good things. But Dean's no pushover. We got to work hard. We got to do the things we're trying to do here to get us in the game in the fourth quarter. It's going to be a close football game, and it's going to be an exciting atmosphere. So we'll see if we get it done, and that's the goal. Again, I have confidence in my guys and my coaches, and we'll keep rolling. We'll try to keep it going. Hopefully, never look back.
Coach, thanks for joining us.
I appreciate you. Ring the bell.
Yeah, you know what? That was fun. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, but what an enthusiastic, great guy. I mean, you can see why he's a favorite of so many East Region coaches and guys kind of across the country. Done a great job. He doesn't have much to work with. Let's be honest. I mean, they're still trying to build that program up and having some fits and starts. But this past weekend was a big win for them. They really needed to kind of get off the schneid there, and now they have a meaningful homecoming game that's kind of almost not a de facto, but at least will definitely have a big part in who ends up winning the Pool A playoff bid from the ECFC.
Their enrollment is 866 students. Think about that, okay? And so the percentages that play into how big your football team is in relationship to your actual enrollment figure, always a tough thing. Amcat Field seats 1,000 people. If I go there, I wonder if they're going to even have a seat for me if I go up for that for that SUNY Maritime game coming up. Let's go to the standings here as we talk about this. But you will see, as we are pointing out, Gallaudet, Dean, and Anna Maria at 1-0. SUNY Maritime, Alfred State, and Castleton at 0-1. Now, a lot could change, obviously, but unless Gallaudet wins this conference, which I have a tough time believing is possible right now with the way that they've performed, even in the game that they won, it was a tough game. You're going to have a 4-loss team win the conference otherwise. So we'll see how it plays out. But as we referenced, the big game seems to be the Dean game at 1 o'clock. And Alfred State at Gallaudet. If Gallaudet's going to really have a chance here, they're going to have to get by Alfred State, who seems to be an improved team as it is. So we'll probably predict at least one of these games on Friday. But notice here that, Dean Anna Maria, who would have thought that? In Castleton, SUNY Maritime really becomes an elimination game at this point with 2-on-1 teams going at it at that point. In the CCC, we didn't have much action in the CCC as they basically took a week off before re-diving into conference play. But Endicott and Western New England sitting there at 4-1, though Western New England has a non-D3 game attached with the Stetson game. But 2-0, 2-0, and then Husson at 2-3, 2-0. They cannot be underestimated. We joke all the time about my whole Becker thing with Endicott and whatnot, but there are teams that are just very good teams that didn't get a good start in the season, and Husson is one of those teams. And so when they go up against the rest of the pack, look out. And we have, schedule-wise, Curry-Endicott game, which shouldn't be, I don't think, too much of a game the way that Curry has been struggling a little bit this season. But Salve Regina at Western New England could be an interesting game. That's kind of like a mini rivalry going on there over the years. And University of New England at Husson, the Battle of Maine going on up there. We'll see, if the Nor'easters can maybe settle down Husson and really have a signature win for the program if they're able to do so. But always tough to win when Husson is at home. So there is the CCC. Let's just keep rolling for a second to NUMAC. WPI, Merchant Marine. Merchant Marine with a game in hand, we should point out. They're 3-0 right now. WPI at 2-0. But, when you unfold it and unpack it, the game in hand for Merchant Marine really probably is the Maine Maritime game more than anything else. And so, that should be a win for almost anybody in the conference. It's a question here of Merchant Marine, can they consistently win? And there's a big game going on at Merchant Marine this week. Maybe that's the game I attend. Who knows? Springfield at Merchant Marine at 2 o'clock. One loss. Yep. That game should be over within about 10 minutes. And Springfield with only one loss in the conference at Merchant Marine, who's undefeated and in the conference, and only one loss overall against FDU Florham. Big game there. And so, the other games, not too tantalizing. WPI Catholic and Coast Guard at Maine Maritime. New England, overall, we got one more New England conference to go through here besides the NESCAC later. But are you getting a feeling here that the New England conferences are not going to be settled for a while, that we're going to go to week 9 and week 10 and still have a couple question marks going on?
Yeah, I think so. And as much grief I think that New England takes at the national level, at the end of the day, they play a competitive brand of football, and it's not like some of these, Ohio or other Western conferences where, it's one team and a bunch of others that are kind of you saw, John Carroll beat Capital at like 90-0. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's not interesting. And so, say what you want about these New England teams. They have competitive games, a lot of great, smart kids, and great coaching staffs and so on. So, yeah, I think all of these CCC is still up in the air. ECFC is still up in the air. NUMAC is still up in the air. NESCAC looks like it's coming down to Middlebury Wesleyan. So that's, there's starting to be some separation there. But, it's going to be an exciting finish for a lot of these conferences.
And the MASCAC, which you did not mention, but it was coming up next here, WestCon and Framingham State at 3-0 each. But then you have 4 teams just waiting outside of that top 2 for those 2 to trip up. And obviously one of them's got to lose the game they play against each other. Plymouth State, Bridgewater State, Mass Maritime, and Mass Dartmouth at 1 loss each in conference. Now, the interesting thing is the big game, the WestCon-Framingham State game, is actually 2 weeks away. So Framingham State's going to have to play Plymouth State first. They're going to have to get through a team that I think can beat them and has proven that.
Past 2 years. So, This is a big game for Framingham. They need to figure out a way to get the Panthers behind them because they keep getting tripped up by them each year.
Yep, and so Plymouth State knows that and is hosting the game, 1 o'clock game. While WestCon, again, using the home cooking in the evening, Westfield State at WestCon at 4 o'clock on this Saturday. And then WestCon's got to go to Framingham State. Now, conceivably, the following could happen. Framingham State loses to Plymouth State. WestCon loses to Framingham State the following week. And then that big pool of one-loss teams you saw, they're all in play. And we got to start talking about tiebreakers at that point because I don't know if everybody can knock each other off at that point. We may end up with an inevitable tiebreaker scenario. Say it with me, folks. So we'll keep our eye on that. Let's go to the NJAC here. Salisbury, with that big win against Wesley, has taken a lead here. But, Wesley, Kane, Montclair, TCNJ, Christopher Newport, and Rowan all at 1-1. Kind of funny how this conference that has seemed to fall back to a little bit of mediocrity of sorts with their out-of-conference play is playing some mediocrity within themselves right now. And Salisbury's got to be careful. There are some definite troublesome games. And we talked with Patrick Bernardo, I believe was our player guest on, you'll see it on Thursday. But we talked about this Rowan-Salisbury game. We want to hear his insight about it because he knows that Rowan team is not to be taken lightly. They're 1-4, but only in record. They played a tremendous schedule. You'll learn a lot from that stuff. And when you got nothing to really lose, we always say it, those teams can come out, I'll say balls to the wall pretty much, and win the game. Hey, they're ballers, right? So that's what I mean by that.
Yep.
And win that game against the Salisbury teams. Salisbury has to be very careful in a game like this. Nothing else jumping out at me here. Wesley William Patterson. I mean, if William Patterson wants a signature win, there's a chance to get one this weekend.
One thing that jumped out at me, Frank, was that there was a pretty clear quarterback change with Christopher Newport, who was one of those teams I whiffed on. I thought that they were going to be a potential 7 or 8-win team this season. Didn't really pan out that way, even with the extra trip to Canada that gave them extra practice time compared to the other teams in the conference. But this new quarterback, maybe it happened with Wesley when Mullen took over. After the Del Val game, the Endicott game. So sometimes a change is needed, and don't sleep on the captains. I mean, I know that they've struggled, but they could be another, like that Rowan team, 1-4. They're still in the mix here, so you just got to watch out.
The MAC is going to play out interestingly because remember, Del Val and Misericordia again do not play each other this season because of the way the round robin works in the MAC. They'll always preserve the rivalry games, and that means that it's not a full round robin per se in the MAC, and that's why it's possible not to play each other for a couple of years in a row. So Del Val and Misericordia have the ability possibly to win out and finish undefeated and not play each other. If that happens, we'll have to dig out that tiebreaker scenario again because they'll both have one loss in that scenario, don't forget. Granted, I think Del Val has 10 games in their schedule, and Misericordia, because of the whole NJAC mess, I think it only has 9 games that they do. So maybe that plays into, I don't know, because one would be 9-1, one would be 8-1. But we'll go back and get that stuff out when we need to. I think Misericordia's got an interesting game with the Wilkes-Del Val game obviously being an important game because that's going to take somebody out of the ranks of the undefeated this coming weekend at Wilkes, 1 o'clock. But you got to look at this Misericordia FDU Florham game. This is a game where FDU Florham, to me, has a real chance hosting the game. I think this is a type of game, again, where FDU Florham will actually take a lead probably into halftime, and then they're going to have to figure out a way to do what a lot of other teams can't do, which is really hold on and win the game. It's a tough ask, it seems like, for anybody facing Misericordia. I'm beginning to wonder. I don't watch many of their games throughout, so I'm wondering if in the first half they're not like in the library while the other team's playing, the second and third stringers, and then the first team comes out of the library after halftime and actually shows up and plays the game. Because I just can't explain how this team keeps doing this for 2 straight seasons. They're down by 2 possessions. They're done. And you go look at the final score, it's like, are you kidding me? Again? But that's Misericordia. FDU Florham, I would not be shocked if this game plays out that way one more time because FDU Florham's got the guns to do that. We know that. All right, Stevenson, Alvernia, Kings, and Lebanon Valley at Widener are the other games in the conference. Let's go to your former home area and my current, technically, New York. And Cortland, Brockport, and Alfred, all just sitting there undefeated in the conference. Cortland, the only undefeated team, but boy, Brockport playing like one right now. They've got the week off, so they'll get to sit back and watch. Alfred at Cortland, huge game, 1 o'clock. Give me some preview on that game.
Well, I think it's going to be a shootout because what we saw this past weekend, and we didn't really talk about it in Crunchtime, was that Morrisville State gave the Dragons a pretty good run for their money. I know that the final score showed they won by 2 touchdowns, but it was a 1 possession game pretty much throughout the whole second half until the very end. So they gave up a ton, almost 400 passing yards to Morrisville. Sackton's more of a running team. It'll come down to whether or not Griffin can keep churning those yards and keeping Brett Segal and company on the sideline. this could come down to a final possession type of situation too. I think the Dragons, I don't want to say they're overrated, but their defense has shown some issues that could be exploited in Empire 8 play. We'll see.
Yeah, I will give the nod here to the home team, and we'll talk more about it Friday probably in our predictions, but I can't see how you would make Alfred a favorite here, obviously. I think Cortland's a clear favorite, but one game does not a trend make, and I think that the hiccup versus Morrisville State is under maybe looking ahead on your calendar.
Yeah, Morrisville's a good team, though. They've got a solid offense, big offensive line. Good quarterback, so it's not like there's any shame but yeah, I agree with you. I would say Cortland is definitely the favorite here, but Alfred could win it.
St. John Fisher at Hartwick and Morrisville State at Utica. That could be an interesting game actually at Utica at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Liberty League, Liberty League, Union and Ithaca 2-0 each, 5-0 overall. Hobart RPI sitting there behind with 1 loss each. Obviously, St. Lawrence and Buffalo State with 1 loss, but they have only played 1 conference game so far, so we'll point that out. Coming up, though, there's one game that's going to help, I think, solidify some of where we're going from here. Rochester at Buffalo State isn't that game. St. Lawrence at Union isn't that game probably, although Union's got to be careful because St. Lawrence is looking a lot better overall. Let's not kid ourselves here. They are not the team that lost badly in the opening weekend to Utica, but they're obviously still inconsistent. Yep. Hobart at Ithaca. Big game, no matter how you slice it. Does Hobart have the guns after the showing versus Union, and then kind of flipping back at home, the showing against RPI? Which Hobart team's going to step forward here against Ithaca? I think Ithaca should be concerned that Hobart can beat them. They can, but will they?
Yeah, and I think Hobart is going to have to rely on its defense and probably special teams. Points are going to be hard to come by against an Ithaca defense, which has looked solid at times, but also gave up 25 points in the second half to St. John Fisher team, almost 500 yards there. So there are some chinks in the armor that Hobart could look to exploit with their experienced receiving core. But the question I have is, Ryan Hoffman and that offensive line, can they play a consistent game against an attacking Bombers defense that Hoffman struggled a little bit with accuracy. He will hit on the long ball, but he'll also miss a few times here, and has had some issues with turnovers. It killed him in the Union game, and so they can't allow any takeaways. But Joe Germinario hasn't lost to Hobart in his career. He's lit him up in the past 2 times he's played him, so he's definitely has experience there. It'll kind of boil down to players like Emmett Ford, who's already on my, All-American potential list if I had a vote, playing great on defense. Can he, get into the backfield and create problems? Or is it just going to be, the Bombers just putting it up and Will Gladney just catching touchdowns, Vito catching touchdowns? We'll see.
Then you look at what's left here in the NESCAC. Middlebury, Wesleyan, they play each other this weekend. 5-0 teams going at it. This sets things up interestingly, because remember, the biggest little game in the country is still in Week 11, despite the shuffle of the schedule going on. Right. And Amherst and Williams sitting there 4-1, 4-1. They still have some say against the teams above them right now. That game is starting to line up as a huge game for at least one of those teams, if not both, if they can make a statement against whoever comes out of the Middlebury Wesleyan game as the winner ultimately. And there's a lot still to be written, I think, about the NESCAC. The winner of this game on Saturday, I don't think has a free and clear, pathway to the NESCAC championship. I think there's going to have to be a lot of, defending your turf at that point and some tough games to come up. Because if you look at Middlebury's remaining schedule, Bowdoin, Hamilton, Tufts. So out of the 2 of them, that's probably the toughest schedule, or the easiest schedule, rather. The Wesleyan with the tougher schedule is Middlebury, Amherst, Williams, in Trinity. Okay,
Whoa.
so
Tough, yeah.
if Wesleyan beats Middlebury, Wesleyan's going to have to defend itself pretty big time with what's left.
Yeah.
If Middlebury beats Wesleyan, they just have to avoid the shock factor from a team well below them is what it's turning into. So stay tuned. Amherst Williams could still be a huge game, bigger than the norm.
Yeah, if you're a Williams fan, you're cheering for Wesleyan this weekend to knock off Middlebury and open up the race. With Amherst, I think kind of the same deal. So, Wesleyan winning would make things in the NESCAC more interesting. If Middlebury gets it done, and they have, although they almost lost this past weekend, then it might be smooth sailing for the Panthers.
I'll take it a step further because of the tiebreaker, the way things end up working here. Middlebury, if they end up winning, has now beaten at that point Wesleyan, Amherst, and Williams. And so they'd have to lose 2 games not to win. And they would be 6-0 at that point. They'd be basically, 2 wins away from winning completely. They would have the ability to lose a game and not be bitten by it. So Wesleyan, if they're able to beat Middlebury, makes it a race of sorts. If Middlebury beats Wesleyan, that's huge. That could end it. And so when you look at who they've beaten, who they've played, that's an important thing there, ultimately. JB, closing out here, things to look forward to in Week 7. As you're looking at it, give me your 3 top games, the big games you're looking at for Week 7, and we'll predict some of them, obviously, on Friday.
Well, I mean, I think as far as like championship caliber games, you'd have to go with Hobart at Ithaca, probably Del Val at Wilkes, and then either Alfred at Cortland or maybe Wesleyan at Middlebury. But kind of in the undercard, still relevant. Dean at Anna Maria will still have an impact on potential playoff berths. So there's actually, I would say, like 10 or 12 pretty good games this weekend, and it should be interesting to see how they shake out, because like you said, a couple weeks from now, like the very end of October, there's some things starting to shape up that could be de facto conference title type of situations. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, will it be Week 9 or Week 10 where it really starts to happen? I think that's what we were asking amongst ourselves on that as well. We want to do another whip around type show, what do we call it, the Blitzer, but we don't know yet if we should do that in Week 10, because we're looking at the schedule, and some of this shuffling of the schedule has changed some of the implications in that week. But Week 9 perhaps is a big week for that. Week 11 belongs to Cortica, really, for a lot of reasons, and so we're probably not going to do much that weekend, but we will have Selection Sunday coverage that weekend. So a lot coming up here on In the Huddle. You'll want to stay tuned. Remember, share this, share it to your friends and family. If you have a player in Division III that you're a fan of or whatnot, remember, share the show, because we want everybody in that family to know we exist, so they learn a little bit about how this is all working and why certain games are important, or even the ones that aren't as important, and what might be behind them a little bit, like rivalry games, etc. So stay tuned. We got a lot of season to go. We'll have a couple player interviews coming up on Thursday and predictions on Friday, and then back to our regular schedule next week, as I have no more obligations to the degree I had last weekend. Talk to you later.